Hello and welcome back to Jazzonomics. The Christmas festivities are almost at an end. The pile of parsnips has been significantly reduced, and I've spent a fairly enjoyable few days watching an awful lot of television, listening to music, and walking the dogs. Errol will be coming over on Monday. The cold is very much in retreat. There are a couple of bits of television that I think you should be aware of, and some records that I think you should be aware of that I've been listening to quite a lot over the past few days. And also a piece of television that I think you should give a very wide berth to. There's a great documentary on the iPlayer released in 2022. My brother alerted me to it. I'm not quite sure how I missed this at the time when it was broadcast, because it's the sort of British modern history programme that I'm very much interested in. I'm not interested in historical programmes at all, but anything that is probably after the Second World War very much captures my imagination, whether it be political or otherwise. And this was called Falklands, Our Falklands War, a Frontline Story. The programme kicks off with an interview with a private. He talked about a waterproof Walkman that he had, and he only had one tape. I don't think this particular song was on his one and only tape, but he was asked what the theme tune should be to this documentary, and he chose Fortunate Son by Creedence Clearwater Revival, the anti-war, anti-Vietnam, class-conscious song written by John Fogerty on this brilliant album, Willy and the Poorboys. I think it was released in round about 1969. The most famous songs on here are Fortunate Son, Down on the Corner, and I think it's a cover of the Leadbelly song or traditional song, Midnight Special. Brilliant album. It's bluesy, Americana, hints of country, it's swampy, southern rock. A brilliant album. The opening refrain to Fortunate Son is, some folks are born to wave the flag, all the red, white and blue. When the band plays Hail to the Chief, they're pointing the cannons at you, Lord. It's a great anti-war and protest song, and the documentary is not jingoistic, it's not flag waving or saber rattling, it's human, it's poignant. It looks at the fallout from the futility that is war and conflict. A great documentary. It's the sort of it's the sort of programme that the BBC does better than anyone else. And a couple of things that are probably also still on the iPlayer that you should check out. In a similar sort of vein, The Plot to Kill Thatcher, which was only released months ago, and a 4 or 5 part documentary series, which was probably the best. I think it came out this year, and it's probably the best thing that I have seen on television all year. Once Upon a Time in Northern Ireland, looking at the Troubles. There are great interviews, footage. There's some very interesting footage with Patrick Kielty, who I believe his father was killed by either the IRA. I think it was the IRA. Anyway, it's a brilliant documentary. One that you should check out. 4 or 5 parts. Superb documentary making. Some of the best documentary making I've seen outside of Adam Curtis. I've spent an awful lot of time listening to music over the past few days, and there's one album that I've listened to, or one box set rather, that I've had for, I don't know, at least 10 years. I think I paid 10 pence for it from the Paul Sartori Charity Warehouse in Haverfordwest. It's something that I've never listened to before. I thought, oh, let's give this a go, see what this is like. It's on the Proper Box label, and it is called Jazz at the Philharmonic, the first 10 years. 4 CDs, contains people like Dizzy Gillespie, Charlie Parker, Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday, Roy Eldridge, Max Roach probably. The recording quality on this is very, very good, and very, very good indeed for the Proper Box label, whose recording quality sometimes can be lamentable, is a word that springs to mind. But this is very, very good indeed. I've listened to 3 of the 4 discs. On one of the discs, Ella Fitzgerald sings on 3 tracks. I'm not particularly keen on those, and I think on the first disc, which I haven't listened to, there's a fair amount of Billie Holiday. I'm not really sure whether that will be right up my street at all. But this, if you see this, cheap, and it's cheap, I would get hold of it. It's outside of the Stan Getz, the sound box set. This is the best Proper Box set that I've heard so far. Very good indeed. Also, this, a very cheap and cheerful introduction to Miles Davis. 20 albums on 10 CDs. It's quite nicely packaged, actually. The pretty decent liner notes in a booklet, and you know, sort of glossy things, some fairly hard to find CDs in there. You know, you've got Cooking and Relaxing, Birth of the Cool, Conception, The Modern Jazz Giants, and also Something Else by Cannonball Adderley. It's a very, very good and cheap introduction to Miles Davis in between the years of around about 1950, I think. 1950 and 1958. There are a couple of slight issues that I've got with this album, and they're fairly well documented. I'm not sure whether it's on Dig or Blue Haze, his albums from 51 and 54. One of those 2 albums, one of the tracks just sort of fades out or stops abruptly. I'm not quite sure why that happens. It's a minor irritation. And also on the Cannonball Adderley album, Something Else, there's 1 track missing. And also on the Porgy and Bess album, it's not the full album. There are selections from Porgy and Bess. And on here we have Cooking and Relaxing. I think it would have been better if there was Cooking, Relaxing, Working and Steaming on here as well. I think they're prestige albums, and they can be found on this brilliant Avid jazz set. Cooking, Working, Relaxing and Steaming. Not a weak album on here. That is highly recommended. I think I picked that up for a couple of quid. This here, you can buy this for around about £13–14, delivered for around about £17. It's a very good place to start with Miles Davis. It's got its flaws, but for the price, you can pretty much ignore those. The Miles Davis 20 classic albums does contain some of these albums, well, all of these albums that are here, and a whole lot more. Miles Davis and the Jazz Giants. Some of the albums on the Miles Davis box set are fairly difficult to get hold of, and they will be relatively expensive. So for 13 quid, it's pretty much a no-brainer, especially if you want to be introduced to Miles Davis. Another album on there is Miles Davis and Milt Jackson Quintet, Sextet, the Blue Haze, Steaming, Working, Bag's Groove, the masterpiece that is Milestones, and it probably, for my money, contains Miles Davis's greatest song, which is either Miles or Milestones, listed differently in different places. It also Miles Davis All Stars, Walking, very, very good album, and Miles Davis Birth of the Cool. Slight irritation with Birth of the Cool. The final track on there, I think it's called Darn That Dream. It's got some bloke singing on it. It really does annoy me every time I hear it. It's something of a misstep. Oh yes, talking about television that you should give a wide berth to, and I'm going to close the programme with this. I'm not saying I got swept up in the hype of Gavin and Stacey. It was a sitcom that I used to rank fairly highly when it first came out, probably about 20 years ago. And there was a Christmas special several years ago that I can remember being incredibly underwhelmed by. I can remember watching it around my brother's when I went to my parents for Christmas, and that didn't really hold my attention. But I thought, right, let's see what all the fuss is about. So I sat down and I watched it. I watched it in 3 sittings, 30 minutes, and the final 30 minutes. And it was predictable, it was crowd pleasing, it was uninspired, it was a sitcom by numbers. There were 2 bits that were slightly out of left field that I thought were fairly well done and fairly amusing. A bit with the mouth organ when Nessa was on a rickshaw come bike thing, and a riff on Hale and Pace, which I thought it was noticeably more inventive than the rest of the script. I found the characters quite irritating. I found the acting quite sort of fairly hammy and unconvincing. And if I compare it to something else that I've been watching an awful lot, I've watched one of the 3 series of Ted Lasso on Apple TV. That is funny, it's sharp, it's quite sort of sentimental and schmaltzy in places, but it gets away with it because it's done with a certain amount of charm, and the writing is really inventive. You get some strange references. I don't know, say Billy Joel is mentioned, Kenny Rogers, the Beastie Boys, A Tribe Called Quest. It's continually surprising and inventive. And if I look at other recent British sitcoms from, very recent British sitcoms such as Motherland, Am I Being Unreasonable, Mum, Daddy Issues, Spent, Ludwig, they all knock the Gavin and Stacey special or specials into a cocked hat. A very disappointing and lazy, very lazy piece of Christmas television, which I believe 12 million people watched, and I was one of those. But for the last 15 minutes, I was flicking around on my phone, and I wasn't interested at all. In fact, I did think about winding it to the end to see what the finale would be, but I stuck with it. I gritted my teeth and stayed with it. I hung on for dear life, and it really was a complete waste of time. So that was an hour and a half wasted, and before that I watched Tottenham be beaten by Nottingham Forest, another hour and a half of very I wouldn't really call it entertainment. It was turgid and frustrating. So that's 3 hours of television on Boxing Day that I wish that I hadn't bothered with. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, please like, share and subscribe. This is my second run at this video. The last one was rather shambolic. I couldn't find my glasses. I got a hat on. I was trying to find my glasses and they were on my head. I'm waiting in for the new car to come, and nothing says that you have arrived more than a 2011 Skoda Fabia estate. The excitement in the McConnell household is palpable. Right, thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, please like, share and subscribe. I'm rushing to the end here. This was Jazzonomics.